Hey friends, Tofal Smokey here, and it's been a long time since I've managed to get a video out, but today we're taking a day off from the stream to talk about Gauss. I want to do a quick guide on how to build and play Gauss, as well as discuss some cool interactions and synergies that might not have been listed in the game or even on the wiki yet. Gauss is a very interesting new addition to Warframe, and while I think he certainly has some problems, he's a lot of fun to play and brings some impressive speed and survivability. So let's jump right in and go over the two Gauss builds that I'm using. If you already have a build that you like and you want to jump straight to the discussion on his abilities and synergies, jump to the time listed here now. So with 3 formas on Gauss, I have 2 builds that I'm really digging so far. The first build I have here on screen is for speed, and as you might imagine, is going to be what I'm using on Gauss 90% of the time. He's first and foremost a speed frame, and his first ability, Speed Boost, is affected by sprint speed mods. So we're going all in with Rush, Armored Agility, Speed Drift, and the combination of Sprint Boost and Coaction Drift. Narrow-minded and prime continuity give tons of duration, and the negative range isn't really going to affect this build at all. You're probably going to be one-shotting everything around you with a melee weapon with all kinds of jacked up attack speed like you would with a Volt or Nezha in these kinds of missions that you might have brought one of them to before. But we'll get more into that when we go over abilities. We have Streamline in here for some efficiency and natural talent solely to increase the cast speed on Redline, as it takes a very long time to cast and you can't melee or shoot while casting. This mod could easily be replaced by Fleeting Expertise if you want more efficiency though, as Gauss is a little bit hungry for energy. As you can see, I actually am running double Energize on this build. 1 Energize and maybe a Guardian or Aegis would be fine though too for normal missions. If you don't have Energize, I probably would recommend some more efficiency on this build, but it might not be a problem if you're killing mobs fast enough to generate enough energy orbs. So that's the speed build. Let's go over a tankier version of this one that I use for things like Sortie, Kuva Flood, or long endless missions like the new Disruption nodes. So if Nezha is fast Rhino, the idea of this build is that Gauss can be fast Hildryn. Redirection, Adaptation, and Arcane Aegis combined with Gauss's passive shield regen from his battery mean that even at high levels your shield will often be recharging faster than enemies can even break it. Quick Thinking is here as a buffer in case a Toxin or Slash proc makes it through your shields, but as long as your battery is charged, these mods and Kinetic Plating will keep you alive in Sortie 3 missions and above. The rest of the build stacks duration with Prime Continuity, Constitution, and Augur Message, and includes Rush for better mock rush speeds and Prime Flow and Streamline for some energy management. The Arcane Energize is again a bit flexible here, but Arcane Aegis definitely helps with this build a lot. If you don't have Aegis, I would swap the Redirection or even Quick Thinking for Vitality and survive more off of your health than your shields. But you'll probably want some form of healing either in the squad or with your operator to top off your health if something gets through Kinetic Plating. This build still keeps Gauss moving quite fast and allows him to survive well enough in high level missions, and gives him the option to do a little bit of close range CC with his 1 and 3. Let's take a look at Gauss's abilities next and see what benefits we're getting out of these mods. Gauss is, to put it lightly, a complicated Warframe. There's a lot to explain here, but I'll try to keep it concise. Gauss's passive is his battery. As you move, either through running, sprinting, rolling, or ideally mock rushing, you charge the battery bar that you see in the bottom right hand corner of your screen when playing Gauss in mission. This battery can naturally charge up to the red line at the top of the skinny part here, which is 80% of its maximum capacity, with the top part being reserved as extra battery for when you're in your red line state. Gauss gains extra shield recharge and shorter shield recharge delay based on the level of the battery, and the gauge also affects a few other abilities that we'll get into as we go along. And as weird as it might sound, for Gauss to make any sense, we're going to talk about his ultimate straight away now that you know how his battery works. Gauss's 4 is called Redline. As I mentioned before, upon activation, Gauss will gain access to the last 20% of his battery. Once the battery gets above the previous 80% limit, a second gauge begins to tick up his Redline meter. The second gauge will be displayed as a percentage, increasing from 0 to 100%, starting at the top of the skinny part in your battery indicator. This gauge will continue to increase as long as the battery is above the 80% redline limit until it reaches 100% charge, boosting fire rate, melee attack speed, reload speed, and weapon swap speeds. At 100%, those bonuses are maxed out based on your modded duration, and abilities that drain battery charge no longer do. You will also release surges of electrical damage while past the redline limit, and when redline expires or is decast by pressing 4 again, you release an AoE explosion. This explosion purges battery charge based on the redline percentage when it expires. Redline should be kept up as much as possible while moving, only occasionally deactivating it if you need to stay in one spot for a while. And just in case there is any confusion here, none of your other abilities are affected by the actual percentage of the redline gauge, but some can be benefited by both Redline synergies and the extra 20% of the battery accessible while Redline is active. On that note, let's talk about the rest of Gauss's kit and how it interacts with his passive battery and his Redline. Gauss's first active ability is Mach Rush. You can tap 1 to gain a burst of speed in the direction your camera is facing, or hold 1 to begin channeling and sustain that speed in a blazing fast sprint. Once the sprint is active, you can release the key and continue in a mostly straight line, and either tap 1 again to end it or hit a solid object to stop. Energy is drained as you sprint with Mach Rush, affected by ability efficiency. Running through enemies knocks them over, and hitting walls or anything else large enough to stop you causes a short-range AoE of impact damage. Provided you have room to run, this ability is the best way to charge Gauss's battery, as each cast gives you 10% charge, and the increased speed means more charge per second to the battery while sprinting in Mach Rush. While Redline is active, Mach Rush costs half of its normal energy cost, so it should be used as often as possible in conjunction with Redline to charge the battery and build Redline meter. Mach Rush will get you around maps as fast as the best Volts or Nezhas, but it won't keep you alive, and that's where Gauss's second ability comes in. Kinetic Plating is Gauss's second ability and gives him damage reduction against heat, cold, blast, and all physical damage based on the level of his battery. This damage reduction starts out at a minimum of 20%, maxed up to 50% based on power strength, up to a maximum of 100% when the battery is full. You cannot get Gauss to 100% damage reduction of these damage types without having Redline active to get him past his normal 80% battery limit. While this ability is very strong against many damage sources, it will not protect you from everything. Toxin is especially dangerous for Gauss as it is not affected by kinetic plating and goes through his shields. Every hit absorbed while kinetic plating is active restores energy but drains his battery, as well as a slight passive drain on the battery every second kinetic plating is active. Keeping this ability active is important for Gauss's survival, but can make your battery charge harder to manage. Kinetic Plating will change Mach Rush's AoE damage type to slash though, so make sure to stay rushing to keep that battery charged and get free condition overload procs, because Gauss really likes a melee weapon in his hands. While both Redline and Kinetic Plating are active, Gauss gains a 100% base melee damage bonus and can stagger opponents with every hit. This makes him a very powerful melee frame, as he has increased melee attack speed, melee damage, and enough survivability to get up close and personal with all of those abilities combined. Last but certainly not least about Kinetic Plating, while active, all knockdowns and staggers are also negated. I absolutely hate being knocked down in this game, especially while speeding through a mission like Void Capture with those damn death orbs, so this effect is greatly appreciated. Also worth noting is that this prevents you from being affected by your typical superhero landing animation that annoyingly comes with dropping from large distances. Very useful when speeding around the planes or the ballasts. Between damage reduction, knockdown immunity, and melee bonuses, this ability is absolutely fantastic, but with that in mind, it's time to jump to by far the weakest part of Gauss's kit, Thermal Sunder. Gauss's third and most lackluster ability, Thermal Sunder, is an AoE elemental proc, affected by range, power strength, and ability duration. Tap 3 for cold, hold 3 for heat, one of each in the same spot does blast, and you can stack them to increase the effect. The cold version of Thermal Sunder will give Gauss 10% battery charge, while the heat version will drain 10%. As I said, this ability feels kind of out of place with the rest of his kit, but the cold AoE can at least give you some free battery charge and provide a little CC. Doubling up with the cold circles will freeze anyone caught inside, or with Redline active, as long as the battery is above the 80% normal limit, these freezes will only need one cast to proc. Redline also increases the heat proc's damage of the heat circle, and causes the blast variant to strip armor. Still, it's a lot of casting animations for a pretty short range armor strip that only reduces armor by 50% at max battery. But hey, even some really great frames have one bunk ability. Maybe this will see some tweaks in the future. Higher base range and bigger battery increases would certainly be nice, but Gauss isn't going to stay in one place very often ideally, so you aren't getting a ton of value out of lasting AoE pools. But that about wraps it up for Gauss's abilities and builds. Just some final thoughts on our new speedster here, I guess. A lot of people in my Twitch chat have asked the same question in the few days following Gauss's release. Very simple question that seems to have a lot of different answers going around right now. Is Gauss good? And the answer is, well, yes. But not in every mission type. This happens a lot whenever a new frame comes out that can't deal massive damage with a few button presses. Hell, Garuda had that at launch and some people still complained about her damage. But Gauss is something more important than being just good or being meta. Gauss is useful. He's fast and tough, and maybe I'm biased since Nezha is my most played Warframe, but in a game where most missions take 2 minutes and we can kill enemies with one swing of a Zaw, not dying and getting from point A to point B quickly are massively important for efficient grinding. Gauss will shine in quick fissure missions, open world content, and in my experience also in the new disruption modes, as he can cover a ton of ground and his melee bonuses make short work of the demos. He sits in a great spot where he is more survivable than Volt, but he still gets the attack speed and ease of use advantage over Nezha, and he might just be faster than either one. but not as fast as Nova. Thank you guys very much for watching the video. Sorry it's been so long. We've been mostly just really focusing on streaming so much lately. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to hop on over to twitch.tv/TofalSmoky, hit follow, and come say hi when we're online for Warframe. Ask any questions you may have about Gauss or just the game in general, and come meet the community. A lot of really cool people hang out, and we'd love to have you. Thanks for watching again. See you soon. Bye.